feel like everybody was in it, but also only had part of the story. Because I feel like even at the end, they would ask like clarifying questions where we were like, "Oh yeah, we never told them like what this actually is."
Today, I'm talking with Jason Tranchida and Matthew Lawrence, whose life and work has been shaped by 2 decades of shared projects, shared risks, and shared curiosity. Their collaborations range from Headmaster magazine to Scandalous Conduct. They blend research, queer history, community storytelling, and an intuitive sense of design. This conversation explores how long partnerships evolve, how creative identities intertwine over time, and what it means to build a life by building work together. Jason and Matthew, thank you so much for joining me on I'm Here Too.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's great to be
Yeah,
here.
it'll be fun. So, we're going to jump right in because there are 2 of you, and I want to make sure we get to know each of you a little bit and then talk about some of the work you're doing together. So, Jason, you're up first. I have some questions about your education and artistic creative practice. So I know that you have an architecture and sculpture background,
It's
and
true.
that you also run an interdisciplinary practice that focuses on graphic design and brand development. I'm curious, like, what about your life, educational background has led you to this work?
Yeah, I had a really funny yeah, my path was a little bit funny because I started in architecture school in undergrad and was like 100% in it, like, no going back. And then had moved to New York and went to grad school for a secondary architecture degree. Halfway through it, I was just like, I'm really sick of this and I hate it and I don't like any of my my studio professors. And I was at Pratt Institute, so I was also taking a lot of art classes at the time. And so I had this moment of just like, oh wow, like I had this direct path that I thought I was on, and I was just like, I don't want to be on this anymore. And it wasn't necessarily. I still love architecture and a big fan of architecture. And it really informs a lot of what I do now and how I work actually. But I was just like, I don't want to be a practicing architect, and I was seeing all my friends do it, and they all seem very miserable. So I was then taking a lot of classes in the sculpture department. And my sort of mentor at the time was just like, come on over. And I was just like, oh, wait, do people change majors in grad school? And so I did. And yeah, so I still was a designer. And after I graduated, that was how I earned a living. And I, in the meantime, had moved to Providence, Rhode Island, where we are now, and had a full time design job. But in um, it wasn't an architecture firm; it was a trade show exhibit company that we designed and built the trade shows at the same facility. So it was just where this really kind of met me halfway in this like I like to be in the shop. I like to be like learning CAD at the time because it was really new at the time. And so I was in this sort of like hybrid world, which was interesting. And then we started doing more and more graphics for the booths and things like that and the exhibits. And I sort of became the de facto graphic designer, even though I was not a graphic designer. And then I branched out on my own with the intention that I wanted more time to do my own projects and my own artwork and just sort of have flexibility that way, which was a bit naive because when you start a business, essentially, like you have less time than more time. But anyway, it gave me the flexibility to pursue like my own project. So I've always had this kind of ping pong back and forth between the design world and the fine arts world, um, and yeah, which kind of led to where we are today.
I picked up on your sort of the naivete. I had that too of like, oh, I'll go to work at a law firm, so I'll have time to do my art. And like, no, that didn't happen.
How does
Um,
it work?
but I have been fascinated about people who sort of toggle between, creative practice and client business, entrepreneurial pursuits. I was reading this piece by Paul Graham, and among other things, he founded Y Combinator. But it was talking about two types of schedules. One is the manager's schedule, and another is the maker's schedule. And essentially, like the manager's schedule, it's like each, the day is like 1 hour intervals, right? And
Right.
it's just about when do you meet somebody, open slot, book it, you go. Makers, he's saying it's like the units of time are like at least half a day. And if somebody interrupts it, it's like a disaster, right? And it changes the way you work. And I didn't give much thought in terms of my own life. It was kind of like, oh, Hillary's a maker and I'm a manager, and like, great. But now that I've had a little more time to do making without the manager's schedule as front and center, I am realizing how it changes my tolerance for when the manager's schedule has to come up. So I'm curious, right? Because you do have client work, but you do also have work with Matthew, other things you're doing. Like, how do you toggle, or
Yeah.
do you?
Oh, I 100% toggle, and I think like you can only do something like this if you're a natural toggler, if that's a term. But yeah, no, that was, I mean, because it's something I think about a lot, and that article was really interesting because it really like clarified, like, oh my god, that's kind of what's going on. And even as, I mean, my design practice is great. Um, I get to be creative every day and sort of earn a living at it. But yeah, it does become frustrating because I'm also the manager and I'm also the scheduler and I'm payroll and all those things. So even within that, like not even talking about my like art practice, um, like some clients, I'm just like, I'll be in meetings constantly. And I'm just like, well, when am I supposed to do the sort of work that you've actually hired me to do? Like, so, so it's sort of split there, but, and then it's, doubly split in your creative practice. So when Matthew and I were working um, on our last project, we had amazing blocks of time. It was like I hadn't been in maker mode 100% for that long amount of time, probably since grad school, like maybe even or like some residencies that I did, and you really got to kind of shift back and forth. I also enjoy the sort of logistical part and like and the organizational part too. That's like also part of my brain, so I don't hate it, but they definitely get out of whack. And you're just like, yeah, and like it's funny because you're just like, oh, and I've got this like block of time that I can go off and be creative, but it doesn't, you can't just flip it on and flip it off. Like it's like you need a couple hours at least, or like a weekend to like just get into the groove again. So yeah, it's a tough thing
It's a
to
pursuit.
yes,
Yeah.
it's a constant pursuit.
Well, Matthew, since we have invoked your name and the projects, I want to talk a little bit about you first, and then we'll go back to the sort of Jason Matthew of it all. So, Matthew, you have an information studies and anthropology background. You work with public libraries, town archives, and families to appraise and process collections. But you also write and give talks about the archival literacy gap confronting artists working in archives. So, similar to the Jason question, I'm wondering, how did you get into that work, and maybe how do you explain it to people who aren't in that space?
Yeah, so I've had a very windy career trajectory. It started, going back to like when I was a teenager, I was like determined to go to film school, and then that didn't happen. And I was like, all right, I'm going to become a translator. And then it turns out you need to speak another language to be a translator. And
I don't know if I knew that.
it was yeah, it wasn't for that long. But then switched colleges, basically moved back home, and because of the way the credit system worked, I could have been an English major, but I would have had to take all these prerequisites that would have kept me there for another year, or I could have been an anthropology major and finished on schedule. So I did that because I didn't want to drag living in my parents' basement out any longer than I had to. And so, right after college, I think I was working in a bookstore, and then I got my first writing job, which was to be the art columnist for this free monthly magazine in Providence. And so I just started like finding the artists and art people that I thought were interesting and just like cold calling them and saying, "Hey, can I interview you?" And then that led to what did that lead to? That led to some other writing projects, and then we started a magazine, and so then from the magazine I started doing more art writing. But parallel with all of this, I got really into libraries and archives, and it started in close to 20 years ago now. Providence is a weird city because it's like New York and a handful of other places in the Northeast where the public libraries are a private nonprofit and not a city department. And the director at the time was threatening to close like almost all of the library branches. And so I did a photo project of people that didn't want their libraries to close, and then that turned into a website, and then that turned into a gallery show that I really got because I went to this new gallery to interview them, and then they said, our whole year is booked out except for June, and I was like, what could I do here in June? And so that led to doing like public programming, and then I hosted a spelling bee for 10 years that came out of this. And
just to talk about this show for a minute, it was kind of like early on in our relationship, and I've forgotten that we were talking about it not too long ago. I like in my head it was like a week, but I'm like it was actually a month, and like I think 90% of the days had programming as well. So it was an art show that he pulled together an art show, kind of never doing an art show before.
Yeah, I had never done it before.
And then there was like music nights and book club nights, and that were like super genres. There was there were like book themed bands that played, and I just remember you like taking all this on, and I was just like, who is this crazy person? Like, it was like this really, really expansive, major project. And then,
it was way too much.
Yeah, and I
didn't know.
And speaking of organization, like the whole time I had done enough event planning in my life. I'm just like, where are your spreadsheets? Like, how are you keeping track of this all? And you somehow did. It was fantastic. And I think that was really the beginning of your like library advocacy work that you started doing. So
yeah, and so then flash forward to 2019, and I had a really off year. Like I was barely working. A close friend had died. Just terrible year overall until 2020 happened, and then. So I was like, okay, like I'm writing for all these publications that keep going under. Like I can't sustain this anymore. Why don't I go to library school? And just start over. And so this was 2020, whenever there was that, like, well, if Trump gets elected again, I'm moving to Canada. And I was like, I could actually move to Canada. And so then started the program in 2020. The border was closed. There was no going up there. And then the second year I went to McGill, which is like an hour over the border. So not far, but also it was a move to a new country in the middle of a pandemic. And then there's like that stuff. So since then, I've been doing a bunch of contracts with public libraries, some family stuff. Right now, I'm doing a project for a university art gallery, or college art gallery, I guess. And just kind of like, I don't know, dipping my toes in a bunch of different things and kind of seeing what sticks.
Mm-hmm. So I'm curious about, because I don't know a lot about information science, archives, any of that. Like, what kinds of things you talked about confronting the archival literacy gap for artists? Like, what are
Yeah.
they actually facing, and what are some of the solutions you're bringing?
Yeah. So we kind of experienced this firsthand with our research, where a lot of archives either actively encourage artists to visit or at least passively, get excited when an artist approaches them. But in many cases, there's no instruction that happens. And so if you go to a public library and say, hey, I want to know about the War of 1812, they'll say, okay, here's some resources, go. If you go to an archive and say, hey, I want to know about the War of 1812, they're like, okay, well, what box do you want? And just the really basic, like, how the systems are arranged, what they're actually called.
Just even like I feel like you know it's all like special collections, right? And so it's but like what is a special collection? Just to like even know like where it came from. I mean, because like I feel like collections get sort of left or sometimes dumped in certain places, and it's just like here's every note that this author has ever written, or just like here's every like piece of clothing that this person, so and just kind of I think for me like understanding uh, what they might have and what they might not have, so and like what and also articulating, I guess, like I'm trying to articulate right now, articulate what you're looking for within that archive. So
Yeah, so because I mean, there's no browsing, right? Because you're not supposed to touch everything. So you need to, look at the lists of boxes and say, okay, I want to see the photographs in this. But then if you get the box and you're like, these aren't the right photographs or whatever, it's not like going to a library where you can just like scan the shelves and say, oh, this book has a cool cover. I wonder what that's about.
I see. So it's a little bit more like the first time you go to a library and there's a closed stack situation, and you have to actually think about, oh, what am I actually looking for? And somebody has to go and get it for me,
Yeah.
bring it.
100%. Yeah.
So how is technology? I mean, I know everybody's talking about AI, but like forget AI. It sounds like digitization and just like electronic cataloging would be a space where archives might be going or not going. Like what's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, there's too much stuff in the world for everything to be digitized. And the stuff that is digitized needs to be um, handled in certain ways, and just because things exist doesn't mean they need to be, online or available to everyone. There's a lot of um, controversies around, giving everyone access to things versus like, hey, we don't need to give everybody the nuclear codes or um, yeah, things like that. So I totally lost where the
No,
question
it's okay.
was
I think you're basically saying that what I'm hearing is that the world of archives is a little bit of a still, how do I say, untouched relatively by some of the technological advances that seem to be sweeping other industries as that might.
Yeah. So, like a couple of years ago, we went down to the National Archives in DC, and we were their kind of system is once somebody asks for something, they can scan it, and then it's scanned. Um, we were working with Navy records, and even though the stuff we were working on was like World War I era, they're still not cleared to be digitized. Um, so you have to go in person and um,
Yeah, and I mean, it was such an interesting process and learning experience because we were contacting the National Archives to plan this trip down there, and we had very limited time, so we kind of had to like be a little hyper focused. Um, the prep work to do that was like wild, and every time you talked to someone it was a different person, and it was just, you felt like you were going in circles. You had just finished library school, so you understood what like all the numbers in the boxes meant, and because you had to be hyper specific, um it made my brain hurt, but you understood all those numbers or whatever. And then we got down there and it was like fantastic. They were great and they were super helpful. And it wasn't this, I felt like all that, like,
yeah, everybody was really nice.
yeah, everyone was like wonderful and like, and yeah, just very attentive to your needs and stuff. So that was just, there was something really interesting about like going in person versus if these could have easily been online, but they weren't cleared for clearance. But you know, it was kind of a lot more fun doing it that way. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, in some ways, you're starting to get to this, so I figure like let's dive right in. In terms of creative coupling, that's what I like to call it.
Yeah.
You have these individual practices and things that you're doing, but you also have a number of large scale and multi-year collaborations, right? Like I know of Headmaster magazine and Scandalous Conduct, a fairy extravaganza. I'm guessing there are probably more, but could you guys talk about those two projects in particular? Origin story, how you guys divided up roles, responsibilities, how you think about bringing it into the public, given that you two have very different backgrounds, but a shared interest in the projects being successful?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to start with Headmaster and
Start with
talk about
Headmaster.
how that actually kind of spawned Scandalous?
Yeah. So, Jason has, by the time we started Headmaster, you had been doing graphic design for probably close to 10 years, or maybe a little more. I had experience in bookstores. Um, by that point, I was also like, had done a little bit of curating. And then a friend of ours said, "Hey guys, like, what do you think about starting a magazine?" And we said, "Sure." And so four of us started meeting like every Monday night, trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And the guy whose idea it was, just he's an economics professor. He doesn't have a creative background at all, besides liking magazines.
And having impeccable taste.
Yeah. But he basically thought like we could throw something together like over his spring break, and we were like, well,
how long is your spring break?
Yeah, exactly. And we knew at this point we wanted it to be more than like a Xerox zine, which we could make a couple of those in a spring break, I imagine.
Yeah.
But,
and so this was 2010, and so Kickstarter was a brand new thing, and I had a story in an anthology that was Kickstarter funded. And so I was like, hey, why don't we try to raise some money, and whatever we raise will pay for the first issue, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't work, we tried. So that's how we funded the first issue, and then there were 3 of us for the first 2.5 issues. And then, yeah, it's just been Jason and I since then, plus we counted how many artists we've worked with. It's
over 100.
Yeah,
including our interviewer here and her lovely wife.
Well, can we talk about the artists? Okay, so it's one thing to say we're going to start a magazine. Okay, great. You have the understanding of like why and how people buy them. You have concepts on like how to lay things out, make them accessible to people. But then you guys, I think you added like a layer of complexity, and that you weren't just like, let's interview some cool people or let's put some pretty pictures and seduce people with luxury items. You were like, we're going to give creative people assignments, and we're going to give them deadlines, and we're going to put an issue together around a theme. And can you just, I mean, I don't know if everybody will know Headmaster, but can you just give, I tried to give them the general premise, but if you want to crystallize it or crisp it up.
Yeah, I'll talk, because Matthew brought up like the us getting together every Monday night, and it was a lot of like drinking wine and show and tell, like bringing in like books and magazines and actually zines and things like that.
Yeah,
and like all kinds of printed material, and just like talking about it and like why we like it and why. So but we got to a certain point where like, okay, well, what's this magazine gonna be about? Like, what's its what. And we knew we wanted to be like, it wanted to be a queer magazine and probably an arty magazine and maybe a little bit dirty magazine. And, we were looking at things like Butt Magazine or whatever that was out at the time. And so we actually, so we're just like, where do we get this content, right? And because I don't think any of us were reporters. You had done art writing, but like that's not what we wanted to get. It was really funny, like starting without a concept and just being like, we want to make a magazine. Like, what should it be about? And so we started giving each other assignments to do things to sort of like see how we might generate content. And then somehow at the same, it was like one of those like moments that it was like total chicken egg. We did like had no idea how it happened, but like the name Headmaster got in the mix, and it was just like, oh, Headmaster school giving assignments. Wait, are you about to tell me that I got that wrong?
No, but I know where the name came from.
Right. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Well, but it came up in the context of what we were doing.
Yeah.
Right. And so we approached. Well, one thing is like we all knew a lot of artists, right? And so we approached some people and who had never seen the magazine because it doesn't exist yet, and be like, would you be interested in doing an assignment? And like 9 out of 10 people said yes. And then we're like, okay, now we wait. And then the work started to come in, and we're like, figuring out how to contextualize the work in a magazine and laying it out. We had a couple projects that was probably that we didn't include in that first issue, I think. And that was us and not them, and just kind of not, throwing a bunch of stuff against the wall and just seeing what worked together. And we're like, oh, this actually worked, and actually people were excited to do it. And so we kind of kept going at it and getting better at the assignment writing. And then we didn't have overall arching themes to each issue at the beginning. That kind of developed, and it was more for us to have parameters around like the assignments that we give than it was. I mean, it was always something we wanted to explore, obviously, but like it tightened it up for us. So and kept us from being repetitive. So by the time we get to issue 10, we're releasing the sports issue. So
speaking of the sports issue, so Hillary and I, we got a shared assignment about the presidential fitness test. I'll let people go find it at their favorite stockist. But I thought of you guys because I had a guest, Gene Gurkoff, on, and he and I went to middle school and did not prompt him, but he started talking about the presidential fitness test and running the mile. And then he said, Ara, if my memory serves, I think you were really good at the flexed arm hang. So Headmaster is very relevant and resonant to the class of, high school class of 97 set.
Amazing. That's really, really great to hear.
We were just talking about the flexed arm hang, and I can't remember who we were talking to or why.
I think we were talking about your project and
oh, probably.
Yeah. And then it was just amazing. Everybody had something to say about the presidential fitness test.
It lives on. Okay, so you guys were working together. We'll stay with Headmaster for a second. Everything's going swimmingly, I'm sure, 9 times out of 10. But what happens when there's conflict? Like, how do you guys either resolve differences with one another or with collaborators?
Yeah. It's been the last couple of Headmasters, I feel like there was no conflict at all. We really...
Or it was all conflict and we didn't notice. I don't know.
Or maybe it was that. Yeah, like every once in a while there's... there have been a couple of contributors where like one of us was more excited than the other one, and then sometimes the work is like not what we expected, because that's part of the concept of the magazine is whatever we get back is what we work with. And so if we get back something like, I think only a couple of times we've rejected things.
And that was more, it was like they either kind of ignored the assignment or sort of, and part of, I mean, just go back to, just maybe your listeners, just to punch it home what Headmaster is. So we write assignments for artists to do original projects for each issue. So the whole point is original. And a lot of times it's the first time that certain artists have worked in that way or working in the sort of physical or in the medium of a magazine, right? And it's a limited amount of pages. It's not a website, so there's not infinite space for the work to be displayed. So there's a finite amount of pages between as few as 4 and maybe as many as 12 or 14, or 6-7 spreads of the magazine. So when we're actually laying out, that is actually one point when there is some conflict of no, we have to give those 2 extra pages to this artist, and no, I'm not that excited about that project. I think it should go to that. And so it was just sort of duking it out of projects that might be near and dear to each of us more so than the other one. The other place where I think we had the most. So our assignments are very, they're very pointed, but some are very large and abstract. Some are hyper specific. Some are do this research into this specific thing. we also always encourage artists to like flip the assignments on their head and like, and run with it. And so often I've never gotten in a fight about like a single word with anyone but you, like in writing the assignment. So it'd just be like,
Yeah.
and because we spend a lot of time writing them. They actually take a long time to write, and then we let them sit for a minute, and then go back to it a couple days later and whatever. But yeah, we've definitely had some. We've had some fights about single words and probably commas, So, and that is like one thing that has been really fun working with Matthew on this, who is a fabulous writer and a very concise writer, of just like learning that, like your kind of style of writing that. So,
And commas.
and commas. Like Matthew's all about the comma. I'm all about the M dash. So it's like, that's our.
I'm leaning a little more into the M dash, but I have never met a comma I did not like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Learn to love the M dash.
So was working together something like, because Jason, you mentioned when you first met Matthew, he was engaged in this like very involved set of programming around this exhibition. Like, was working together something that was inevitable for you two, or was it something you consciously had a conversation about, or did it just happen?
You want to start, or do you want me to start?
I can start. I think it was kind of inevitable. Before Headmaster, we had done a couple of things together. I very briefly ran a little gallery out of my apartment, and Jason was in, I think, every show and also group.
Was this before you started dating, or was this a way to get him?
Good question.
But you also like did all, like, you actually hung everything, and
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I think there was a stage where like we were very supportive of each other's work and sort of like in that, in that couples kind of way. It's just like, I'm doing this crazy thing, you have to help me.
Right.
Or you're doing this crazy thing and I'm like, you're doing it all wrong, give me the hammer. Like and so I think there was a lot of that.
And then we also had I was wondering what I was hearing.
Oh.
That's your chair.
Oh,
the plant. We also worked on a video project together. That basically we had our friend film us just in like, it was kind of like a travel video to promote Providence, but it was like over half an hour long, and the whole thing soundtrack was different versions of Every Day is Like Sunday by the Smiths.
And to give it a little context, it was a show between Providence artists and Chicago artists, and there was sort of this reciprocal thing. So we hit it from the sort of like let's show them what Providence is all about.
And so that I think that was the first thing that like had both of our names on it.
You're right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
But yeah, from there, I mean, Headmaster is a print magazine, but we also, especially at the beginning, we were doing like 3 or 4 events for each issue in different cities, and so there was a lot of like promotion and stuff like that.
Like event planning stuff, and then we curated a video program of like queer and gay artists as part of the festival here, but we staged it at a gay video bar downtown. So we kind of took over like what's usually like share videos with like super arty videos. That confused the hell out of everybody.
It confused, yeah. That day was not fun for most people. I lied. The first thing that we ever had both of our names on was another video festival that we curated, which was a friend of ours was running New York Pet Fashion Week. And
back up. New York Pet Fashion Week.
yeah, so this was like in the Paris Hilton times where like
Yes.
and Legally Blonde the musical.
Yep.
And so
It was
we don't need to talk too much about Pet Fashion Week, but
it was a trade show and pet fashion event is what it was, and so there were these like this fashion show that was like people and their dogs and coordinated like designer like and custom made outfits, and we got roped into that, and we curated a
the New York Pet Fashion Week Film Festival.
which was like a collection of awesome videos about with dogs and whatever.
And I kept it on my resume for about 15 years just because
it was ridiculous, but to this day I stand behind that film. It was like it was a great like conglomeration of like films.
Yeah.
I have a new novel coming out. I might have to talk to you guys about pets and fashion and
oh my god, yes, please.
Stay tuned for that. So, okay, so you guys have been doing print, events, mixed media. When I met Jason at Cuddy Hunk, you were sort of very much in the middle of Scandalous Conduct.
Yeah.
In so many ways. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Scandalous Conduct, a fairy extravaganza?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'll start at the end and then circle back. But Scandalous Conduct, a Fairy Extravaganza. It's a musical documentary, but it's also an immersive 3-channel, 3 like large screen looped video. So it's kind of not your traditional documentary per se. And what the topic is the Newport Navy sex scandal of 1919, which was this entrapment scheme essentially started by the U.S. Navy in Newport, Rhode Island, right after World War I. But they were entrapping sailors and civilians for gay activity in and around the naval base right after the war. So this story got on our radar, actually. Well, we stumbled upon the story, and this being a Rhode Island thing, and Rhode Island being tiny, and us knowing a lot of queer history, but also knowing all the queer historians in the area that could have known about this. We were really surprised how many people didn't know about it. And a lot of people have written about it and stuff like that, and it's in, queer history anthologies and things like that. But we stumbled upon it, and we were just like, wow, this could be a really cool topic for a Headmaster project. And then the more we dug into it, the more we're like, oh, this scandal is crazy. And then we're like, oh, maybe this is more than, 12 to 14 pages could handle in a magazine. I mean, definitely could have done it like that. But also, I think more importantly and selfishly, like, we're like, we want this assignment. And so that's kind of what spun us on this like archival journey originally it was going to be about a year-long project. So research and doing something around it. We didn't know what form it was going to take, and we sort of held off even thinking about that until we were just kind of letting the research dictate where this project would go. But of course, then in the middle of it, a pandemic happened, and we had so much time to go down every single wormhole that we wanted to. And so we did, and then eventually we had given a lot of talks about it, because it's like everybody, I mean, that's kind of also what like kept us going with the project as long as it did. It's like everybody was always really interested in like us babbling on about this thing for hours, and so it kind of like, okay, maybe people would be interested in this or as interested as we would be. So, and then it ultimately turned into this like sort of musical production, and we can kind of go into the nitty gritty of what that is all about as well.
I'm sure you can. Maybe, I guess though, high level, I mean, again, involving other people, right? You had actors, you had voice people, you know, like what
Yeah.
is it like for you to bring people into your creative idea and like rely on others to execute?
Say that again. The first part.
Just like with Headmaster, with Scandalous, like you have other people that you're relying upon to help
Yeah.
you bring an idea together. Like, is that a more natural way for you guys to work? Or have you ever said, like, you know what, we'd rather just be alone and get it all done?
And I
Um,
think we probably have different answers for that too.
yeah, that's a good question. I think so. The way Scandalous Conduct came together, we it was the two of us, and so there's three components to it. There's archival photography that we used, um, but we worked with actually two different choreographers. One of those choreographers is an old friend that Jason did work with a long time ago, and the other one actually came to us first as an actor, and then the choreography came like a year after we met him. Um, and then we also have this musical part, and then we had, our costume person who also ended up doing wigs and uh, did makeup at least one day.
Yeah.
He came in like really early, and he's somebody that we've worked with for on different projects like for probably a decade now. So I think we bring people in, and we kind of tend to keep working with them. Um, we had probably 15 or 16 actors. They weren't all local, most of them were. But I feel like, yeah, even most of them, I feel like I'm still somewhat in touch with.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you kind of get when you work on these sort of collaborative projects that are like that, you're like, oh, this is my team, and you know who you can trust, and you know you have a shared like language, and like the person that was our videographer and director of photography for Scandalous Conduct, like I had gone to school with, and we became friends right after we graduated, and you know I was always roping him into video projects I wanted to do. So we have like a sort of brother relationship, which is really funny. But I mean, in terms of like working collaboratively, I think I'm like I come from more of a collaborative world. I like just because I've done set design in theater. Architecture school is not, but architecture is a very collaborative practice, and you have to depend on lots of different people. We had done smaller video projects, and we had a taste of what it was like to work with people in that capacity. But filmmaking is such a collaborative process, and our first, actually the first, the you had just posted, or it was 3 years ago. Yesterday was our first like workshop that we did with our director of photography and like a few actors and our makeup artist, and yeah, no, I think that was it, and so we this project also being like not like a scripted traditional movie. It wasn't like, oh, learn your lines and then we're gonna do these scenes. It was just like, we don't know what the scenes are yet. Like we have an idea in our head because we were kind of working better backwards from historical photos that we wanted to take these photos and figure out movement based, like how you got to this image, right? And so and that was our first time working with actors in that capacity, because like then, it was like the night before this workshop, and we're like, oh shit, what are we gonna have them do? And we're just like, I don't like. I mean, we kind of know what we want to get out of this, but we're like, what do we tell them? And then we're just like, and we told them this idea of like how we wanted to work backwards, and they just started to do their thing. And we were working with actors that are used to doing like developing stuff. So it was definitely a different, specific kind of actor that like was interested in working this way and working in kind of a strange non-traditional way. And like I feel like that the whole cast and crew we pulled together was really open to that and just kind of trusting us and us trusting them. So it was awesome. Like it was such a great experience. And I remember after, part of the reason we did the workshop too is like, hey, is this what we want to do? Like, because like we've got 3 years of research behind us and
Like-
probably another 2 years, like if we're going to do this, and like we have to raise a shit ton of money. And so like
it could be a puppet show or a comic book.
yeah. We still got time where we could just like close the doors and the two of us could come up with something. And but after we did it, we're just like, oh my god, that was so much fun. And it was like it seemed it was proof of concept for other folks, but it was really proof of concept for ourselves. Like, and just like, is this something we want to move forward? I feel like we really circled around probably your question.
No, this is it's fine. I think I understand the process and how you guys got there. And sometimes it's great to work with others. And I think what you're bringing out though is it's also important to get a team that understands and wants to be part of your bigger picture and is committed to like, let's get there together. And it may be uncomfortable. We might not know where we're going, but we all want to get there. So that whole working backwards vision is
100%.
Yeah, and the way we did this project particularly, like everything was in such sections. Like we had one location where we filmed all of the movement sailor scenes, and then a month later roughly, we filmed all of the musical numbers. In between we like recorded them, and then they were lip syncing to their own voices basically, and then we added the band later. So I feel like there was only one actor who was in every part of it. So some of the people that read the reports, I guess a couple of them still haven't even seen it. And the people that were in the sailor scenes didn't necessarily know like what the audio accompaniment was going to be. So I feel like everybody was in it, but also only had part of the story. Because I feel like even at the end, they would ask like clarifying questions where we were like, "Oh yeah, we never told them like what this actually is."
Yeah, so even with that it being somewhat compartmentalized, like everybody was really in it to win it and like got on board.
Well, I remember when I met you, Jason, it was like 2021-ish, is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah, we were at this artist residency. I was tagging along with Hillary. Matthew, I don't know if Jason told you, but when I heard the concept, I said, you have to do a housewares and like home goods and like pajamas. And so we may not be starting a store yet, but I'm curious. I know you guys are still sort of in Scandalous Conduct and, going and speaking about it, but like, is there a next collaboration on the horizon? Or are you guys still riding this one?
Good segue.
Yes, there's at least two. The space we're in now is our new studio. That starting next year, we're going to be doing some events in and programs, and we're going to use it part time as a gallery space. So that's a big one. And then we also are throwing around the idea for a little sequel to Scandalous Conduct. One of the sailors, I won't say everything because
No, don't give it away.
one of the sailors that was arrested in Newport, and the only one who wasn't convicted, went on to live this absolutely insane life that took him from um, Louisiana to New York to P Town to LA back to New Orleans.
So literally went on to live his best gay life, which is like
Right.
the best in gay, like, and not even just New York. He was in Greenwich Village. It wasn't just Louisiana. He was like in the French Quarter,
Yeah.
and like part of Mardi Gras. And anyway, there's a lot. And I will stop talking about that now.
All right. So we will watch this space, and when you can come back and we'll talk all about it. But that actually, we did not plan this, but this is a good segue because I'm curious about location. So it sounds like you guys are pretty well set in Providence, Rhode Island, but let's pretend, right? Like if money, space, time wasn't an option, like I want you each to answer separately. Where would you go? Jason, go first.
That is such a tough question. Yeah, I don't. You know, it's funny in terms of it's something I think we love about Providence is the size and the sort of concentration of like amazing, quirky, insanely talented, creative people that are here, and then and it being a small place, um, just your proximity to everyone, and you're completely bumping into other creative folks in a very organic way. And it's funny because other places we're attracted to when we go to are like other quirky mid-sized American cities. Like, you know, Baltimore is always fascinating to us. We just spent some time in Pittsburgh. We like absolutely loved it, but seemed like also had that really city of a certain size and a, you know, and a good amount of artistic misfits and like, you know, kindred spirits and things like that. So like in terms of that, like, but that's a very like realistic one. That's not like, you know, that's like very doable. But, and um, but I've always been attracted to Miami. Like I really love Miami, and I love warmer weather, and I love this. Um, what I love so much about it, like there's a lot culturally going on, and then there's also like the beach thing going on, and I love that combo. Which is kind of like how I ended up staying in Providence in Rhode Island because it was just like I grew up in Michigan, so water is very important to me. But and then I'm like, oh, I love lakes, even I love Great Lakes, but like the ocean is like super important to me. So and I'm always like attracted to LA. Also, I think for that water factor and that it's so much like I grew up in the Midwest. I've been in New England for a long time, so there's something really attractive and interesting to me about like going out west in a whole different
So it
world.
sounds like the sailor might be used as like
Exactly. Yeah.
like we have to go where he was and just live and experience. I see what
100%.
you guys are doing.
Yeah, and we met on an island, right? And
That's
like,
true.
you know, and then I went on to do like we ended up going to another residency that was on an island, and you know, so it's yeah, it's becoming the theme. I do have I have this also attraction, wanting to move to Italy as well. But this, there's definitely a lot of water there too, but the cities are very landlocked more so.
So,
That's
Jason,
fun.
are those your oars? Are
What's
those
that?
your oars in the background? Are those like
Those are
water?
those are
Or
the words from Scandalous Conduct that there was an
okay,
oar dance made to. So, uh, and much to Matthew's chagrin, I'm like, I won't sell them, and I love.
I didn't know if you always have to like, be ready with your, seafaring gear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, we gotta be.
We're on the ground floor now, so
Yeah.
we could flood at any minute.
Like near a river, like so we're in the
You don't.
valley.
We're not going to manifest that for you, Matthew. What about you? Where would you go?
Yeah, so for me, it's so I'm from Rhode Island originally. Went away for college and came back and said, I'm going to live here for a year and then I'm going to go somewhere else. And then 9 months into that year, I got a decent job. And then I met Jason like 2 weeks later. And I was like, well, if I have a job and a boyfriend, I don't really need to move anymore. So then I was saying before about the 2020 exit strategy. And so I moved up to Montreal, absolutely loved it. Was very lucky in certain ways with like where I found housing and things like that. So I really like had a great experience in that city.
I made some wonderful friends.
Yeah. Didn't learn French still. But I tried.
He tried so hard he got caught in an elevator once.
Yeah, I was leaving my intermediate French for business communication class and spent about 45 minutes in an elevator, which I do not recommend.
Were you alone or with other speakers?
I was alone.
Okay.
I'm so happy I was alone.
You weren't immersed in French speaking in an elevator?
I'm hundreds of miles away getting the text here in Rhode Island because I was going back and forth between here and Montreal. He was there. And it's like, I'm stuck in an elevator. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm not who you should be texting right now, but good to know.
So, yeah, I would move back there. And we weren't sure what we were going to do after that. And so, but my parents started having some old people issues. And so now I'm kind of glued here for as long as my mom is around because I'm an only child and she needs a lot of help. But yeah, I like Miami. I like LA. I really like them both. But I'm drawn to the cold places. And so, like, this came up not too long ago that, like, my dream vacation is Minneapolis. And it's this, I've built it up to be this, like, really, I could probably get to Nepal before I could get to Minnesota.
True.
So, one day.
Minneapolis.
I might get to see Minneapolis. But yeah, I think it needs to be a city. It doesn't need to be a huge city, but I'm not a country person. Coastal is good. I like snow.
Okay. Well, you know what? We're going to stick with Minneapolis for you. I'm going to cross my
fingers. If we can move
fingers.
Minneapolis to the ocean.
But you can get to some lakes. So
right.
Yeah, you can get to some lakes. Well, you guys have made it all the way to the lightning round. So
wow.
Here we go. I don't have any sound effects. I don't know. Everybody has their own though. So you did a little whoo. That's good. Woo. Okay, so this is where I try to ask every guest some variation of the same questions. So we'll start with preoccupations. This is something that I've been preoccupied with since taking a creative writing class at Princeton. But essentially, this idea of like, what are the things that we come back to over and over that show up in the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we tell others, or like if you guys, in the business of professional storytelling, the stories that we create for others to consume. The exercise said that they often start with phrases like, I love, or I hate, or I've always wondered, I wish I had, I hope I never, but they don't have to. So just to like give an example, some of mine include organized animal crime networks, ancestors, and work-life integration. So Matthew, we'll start with you this time. What's one of your preoccupations?
This is making me think. Wait, this is the lightning round, so it's supposed to be like a quick answer?
I mean, quicker.
Okay. I think what keeps coming back? Well, I'm working on or I don't even like to say working on. I have a solo project that I've been thinking about for a very long time, which has a lot to do with it's a true crime story that's heavily Catholic and um, also safe sex in the early 90s. I do feel like, yeah, all of those things are around, and a lot of things that I think about, Catholic guilt.
Well, can you say what the project is essentially, or do you want me to say what the project is?
I could. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to give like the 20-minute answer.
If Jason can give it in the 2 line, he seems like he really wants to share it on your behalf, Matthew. So I will break the rules. He seems preoccupied with sharing. So Jason, what do you want to say about this
Well,
project?
he's working on a novel of like three sort of events that were going on concurrently in your childhood, basically. Like, like on a big picture way, and also very locally, like literally, physically near where Matthew grew up. And so it's almost, I don't know if it's a suite of three events that are going to swarm around each other, or if it's like one smoother story or something like that. But there's kind of three buckets
It
of
sounds like a Mrs. Dalloway, The Hours meets True Crime.
oh yeah,
Okay, great. I
yeah,
love it.
run with that one.
Yeah.
Well, Matthew, I'll look forward whenever it's in the world. Let us know. You'll come back. Jason, that didn't get you out of an actual
I
preoccupation.
know. I was hoping it would.
Nice try.
Well, it's funny. So you brought that up in the context of that was a class that you took, and it was an exercise. And when I was in grad school, I had a class that this artist professor taught at least once a year, and became quite a thing. And you had to examine the artwork you made from a child to present day. So, and I was living, miles and miles away from somewhere I grew up. So it was just like, Mom, can you go in this attic in this box and send me those things? And it was just really amazing to see what essentially your preoccupations were, or your inclinations were, from childhood to now. And I'm just like, oh my God, I'm kind of like, I saw my fifth grade leaf book that we had to do as a science class. That was definitely like a book and like very designed and very clear. And like the aesthetic of that is like, is something that like carries through to what I'm doing today. So I think that was, you know, I can't pinpoint exactly what that preoccupation is, but it's in my inclination.
Yep.
And yeah, and I'm sure I have a million preoccupations, but
No, but that's good. It's an idea of like you've shown up as yourself pretty much your whole life. It's just the
yeah,
context as just
and you, it was just so great to do that because like you weren't aware of it necessarily, and then just once you saw it, then you're like, oh wow, now I can kind of do something with that. Like it was really a great exercise, and it was really amazing to see other people's like journey, like creative journey, like from second grade, and it really made I was sort of studio mates with this one woman who just did these crazy installations, and I'm just like I never really understood them, and I didn't necessarily even like them, and then I got the story, and I'm just like it opened it up, and I'm just like oh my god, this is fantastic. Like so it was a really cool exercise.
awesome. Well, we're going to move from inclinations, preoccupations, true crime in our childhood formative years to superpowers. Maybe these will show up again, but I love doing this podcast because I learn so much about what people are good at and what they're unique at and like how they stand out. So I'm curious about you guys, and we will go to Jason first. What's one of your superpowers? Actually, you know what? I'm going to change it up. Matthew, what's one of Jason's superpowers?
Tricky.
Parking in New York. Jason can just like drive up to the block that we are going to, and there is a spot there waiting for him.
There
Like
is a
90
multi-billion-dollar business waiting right there.
It is like it's a talent. It's a gift. It's like it was a gift to me. Like I don't know how it's done, and it's always like let's circle the block one more time, and then like
There it is.
insert the U-Haul right there.
Yeah.
Wow, I want Jason to be around all of the time. Jason, one of Matthew's superpowers.
Matthew's superpowers. Matthew has lots of superpowers. I think your superpower as a writer, always writer and an editor. So through when we started figuring out how to fund Scandalous Conduct, we started writing a lot of grants, and it was a pandemic, and then we had lots of time to like figure out that really long, crazy, sometimes painful process that I actually secretly like. Like it's really I like putting together the package and just like and it actually pushed the project along so much as well because you're always speculating of like what you're doing and then that speculation actually like then manifests and it made some decisions for us of like well in the grant we said we were going to do that which was like a total lie but then we ended up doing it so but anyway like learning like I could spew a million things out, and you could concisely, like your writing style, like just your way to organize thought.
Get them into 250 words.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're watching that, just like, oh, this has to be cut down, and how you do that. And I think that's, I've worked with a lot of editors before, but never this closely, as where like I sort of learned the process of writing and editing, and I think that is a real superpower of yours. And the clarity that comes with that, and I think that shows up in kind of a lot of the work that Matthew does.
I like that. I like that Matthew seems, like, okay. Remembering this the next time that you give him a hard time. When you give him a hard time, though, he's going to say, Jason, this is my superpower.
It'll come back to haunt me, I'm sure.
Well, one thing that won't come back to haunt you, but will come back to you, I hope, is an ask. So I'm Here Too is about community. It's about bringing people together. I hope that people are learning and sharing and come out inspired. This conversation has already given us a lot, and you're clearly very generous with your time and your resources and your mind share. I want to turn it to the audience. What's something that they can do for you?
We are excited about whatever our new space is going to be. I don't know how much of the audience is in New England, but
never know.
that will be up to you all. You can
Yeah.
share with everybody and all your best friends in Providence, Rhode Island.
I think, being aware of what we're up to.
Yeah, that, and like I'm always a couple of things. I think I'm a little hungry for feedback on some of the things we do. Like that's like super thoughtful feedback. And so I like to hear how people hear what we're saying. So that's something I'm interested in. And I love pulling people into my madcap projects, and people have been really generous with that. But I feel like people don't think that I want to be pulled into their wacky projects, and I like 100% do.
This is evidence. I asked, and Jason and Matthew both said, yes, we will do it. And they said it enthusiastically.
Totally. And I think, well, I guess we're going to just advertise it here. It's like we rarely say no when somebody asks us to do something.
Well, how do people find you, practically speaking? Like, where should they go if they want to give you feedback or learn more about what's going on with the space?
Sure. I think probably Instagram is like the easiest to get to us. Our website, Scandalous Conduct, you can contact us through there, and it has more about the project there. My personal Instagram is jtranx, JTRANX, but Scandalous Conduct also has a Instagram as well. It's not always super active, but when we've got something going on, that's where it goes. So, and then the Headmaster website as well. Headmaster has an Instagram as well. Matthew has
and contact on the website.
Yeah.
And then my personal website is MatthewRobertLawrence.com, because there's way too many Matthew Lawrences in the world.
Including a 90s actor.
Yeah.
All right. So to wrap up, and I know that I at least know Matthew because his social media suggests he will have a lot to add in this middle category, but a read, a listen, and a watch. So there is a lot of content out there, and I certainly don't have enough time to discover it, and I'm sure my audience doesn't. So what's something both of you are reading, listening, and or watching? Could be all three, could be one, but that you want to share.
What is the last? I feel like I'm losing my. I read a lot of books, and kind of my time to do that is like first thing in the morning. I'll make coffee, and then when the coffee's ready, I'll go read a book for a little while. But what I'm finding more and more is that I can love a book, and then 2 days later, I will not be able to tell you anything about it. The last. How about it's coming out, I think, at the end of the month, Casanova 20 by Davy Davis, which is this sort of like very dark, tragic sort of fairy tale about this impossibly beautiful man who in 2021 like gets vaccinated and then takes his mask off, and then he's not beautiful anymore. It's not an anti-vax novel. I realized when I was reading it, I was just like, is this gonna go where I think it's going? And it didn't. So that would be my read. Do I keep going, or do you have one?
Oh, either way, yeah. I'm doing research for another project. I love when you call it a solo project, but yeah, for my solo project, which is centered around physical culture and specifically Eugene Sandow, who was sort of the inventor. He was kind of a showman, little bit of a huckster, and like started the um, um, basically the grandfather of bodybuilding and bodybuilding culture and of like the early 1900s in both Europe and then eventually the United States. So it's been just kind of in sort of we're always looking at like the idea of masculinity and what that is, and sort of I feel like there's this nugget of that's where a certain arm of it started. Um, so that's what I'm reading right now. Um, I watching watching though it's tricky. I'm watching the morning show and Diplomat sort of simultaneously right now, and as Matthew says, those shows that I watch where everybody's anxious all the time, and I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. But that I don't know if it makes me feel less anxious watching other people be completely anxious all the time, and
I
you
was
know,
rewatching Ozark and only doing it right before bed, so I cannot throw any stones from this glass house.
yeah, yeah. No, my Ozark watching time was like always bedtime,
I
and
felt very comforted.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's kind of like I like really sad music, makes me happy, and a love of the melodrama. But oh, I can give you a song that everybody should listen to. If you're familiar with Melanie, who's an amazing singer from the 60s, 70s. And I didn't know who Melanie was until she's got this amazing, crazy voice. Until I met Matthew, and then and she recently passed away, right?
About a year
Yeah,
ago.
yeah, and she just was an amazing like figure, and I was, um, and then not too long ago, a listening platform I won't say the name of, uh, came up this crazy cover of Dust in the Wind by Kansas, which is also one of the most beautiful songs ever made. But then it was Melanie doing a cover of this Kansas song probably when she was like in her 70s or something like that. It was incredible. So it's Melanie's version of Dust in the Wind. Also, probably a gateway to the Jason's brain, or
Well,
explaining to some people how my brain might work.
and Matthew, it feels fitting. The reason I was joking at the beginning, I feel like on Instagram, you're always like reminding me of like songs from the '90s that I thought I had forgotten forever, and then there they are.
Yeah, so I haven't finished it yet, but so in last winter, spring, I was under like a crazy amount of stress. My dad had just died. I had to sell my parents' condo. This like all of the things that go along with that, and so I was waking up in the middle of the night, having these like really anxious dreams, and one morning I woke up and was just like, oh my god, I need to finish this list of the 100 greatest R&B songs of the 90s because it's like due today. And I like woke up a little bit and was like, that's not a thing. And then I went into the room where my office is at home, and I had some index cards where I had like started to make this list like in the middle of the night, and so I was like, and it was like dozens of like song titles just like written on index cards, and so I figured if I did that, I might as well make.
And you were 90% there. Like
Yeah.
I was 90% there. Like,
So I have this playlist that is like it's too long now. It's like 160 songs or something.
Is
But Yeah, I can.
You'll be ready.
I could tell people to listen to that. It is maybe not practical. The other one I would say, yesterday, I'm trying to catch up on like music that came out this year that I haven't listened to. And last night we put on the new album from the Waterboys, who were like, I don't know if they're Scottish or Irish, but like their heyday was like the early to mid 80s. But they just came out with a concept album about Dennis Hopper, and it's like it's very long too. It's like
It was
it's
pretty
like
long.
it's physically it might be a double album. I don't know, but yeah, lots of songs about Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper's name gets said like over and over and over again. Fiona Apple sings a song on it.
Don't miss that.
Well, you had me at Fiona Apple, so I'm back at Lilith Fair now.
And sorry, this is like the longest answers ever.
You know, your lightning round here. Our 3-hour lightning round.
It's the thunder and lightning round.
I don't watch TV like at all, really. But I do like a movie. And again, to go back to the 90s, on Thursday, a theater that's like 45 minutes away from here is doing a 30th anniversary screening of Clueless. So I might drive down for that.
Come on up.
As if, she says. No, totally. Matthew, that was worth the thunder, the hail, the wind, and the lightning for you to end on one of my favorite movies of all time. And in college, Amy Heckerling came to speak, and I was like, this is my OG. But no, so both of you, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for spending time with me and sharing. And I can't wait to see some of these projects, solo or joint, coming to fruition. So keep us posted, and we'll catch you next time.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, that's all for this episode of I'm Here Too. Thank you all so much for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed our conversation. Please remember to subscribe so that you don't miss the next conversation. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.